Santos. Now, Santos is unique. He is, I don't know what Santos is. I don't even think that's his name. But, you know, he's a ferret-looking little fucker, isn't he? I mean, he does. He looks like a ferret. Just brrr. So federal prosecutors have charged this guy with 13 counts. And they're all felonies. Money laundering, stealing public money, wire fraud. And I don't get the last one, making false statements to Congress. Well, that's all Trump did for 4 years. That's all other members of Congress do on a daily basis, is lie to their colleagues, but I digress. The prosecutor said all these charges, 13 of them, resulted from, quote, fraudulent schemes and brazen misrepresentations, end quote, all of which were designed to separate the sheep from their money. It's just a smaller variation of Trumpism. Santos knew what he was doing. And so all these schemes were to mislead donors, enrich Mr. Santos, and win a seat in Congress as a Republican from Queens. Yeah, and it worked. Because Christian fascists will believe anything that comes out of a mouth of one of their own. It doesn't matter what the bastard says. Well, I had to rape her because, you know, she was walking around in a short skirt. Oh, yeah, okay, well, that makes sense. Well, I had to get him drunk because, you know, it's very hard to manipulate these bitches unless they are drunk. Yeah, well, that makes sense. Okay, yeah. I didn't know this E. Jean Carroll. I thought she was my wife. Oh, my God. The bulk of the charges against Santos relate to what prosecutors said was a scheme back in 2022 in which this little ferret solicited at least 50 grand in donations from political donors for a fake super PAC. See, in the age of Trump, these Christian politicians, I mean, they had the guy who made template after template after template of how to fuck over people. So, you know, Trump is the one who cast the form from which all of these bastards are taking their copy of how to screw people. First, you start with the Christian shit. Oh, yes, amen. Anyway, he got 50 grand and then pocketed the money. What did he do with the money? Well, according to the indictment, personal expenses, luxury goods, and designer clothing. I've never seen the ferret dressed in designer clothing. I mean, it looks like shit that we wore in high school 60 years ago. I mean, seriously. As part of that arrangement, prosecutors accused the ferret of committing 5 counts of wire fraud. When the ferret was an unnamed political consultant, he directed a political consultancy, really? And he told potential donors in emails and text messages that their contributions would, quote, exclusively support the Republican campaign and pay for TV ads. And, of course, the Christian assholes in Queens and Long Island and one supposed to Staten Island, I don't know what Santos's congressional district, but they all lined up to give him money because, you know, he's a Christian. He's a Christian. He made some claim about being a Jew, but the Jews just went, what the fuck are you talking about? Get out of here. Oh, God. Prosecutors did not identify the LLC that this little ferret put together, but they said it was not legally a super PAC. And 2 donors ultimately transferred 25 grand to the company, and Santos then transferred those funds to his personal bank accounts to help pay off his debts and purchase shit for himself. Hey, I'm going to be your congressman. Yeah, and I love Jesus. I do. I just love Jesus. Now, the pattern that the prosecutors laid out that resulted in all these indictments and charges closely matched the pattern laid out or reported by the New York Times back in January. And back then, the Times reported that Santos registered a company, Redstone Strategies, in November 2021. That's the same date noted in the indictment. And he told donors it was an independent expenditure group, or another way of saying a super PAC. What else? He's also charged 3 counts of money laundering in connection to the donor solicitation scheme. $120,000 here, $24,000 there. 2 counts of making false statements to the House of Representatives. On personal financial disclosure reports. Okay. That sounds like something that is reserved for the Supreme Court justices, making false representations on personal financial disclosure reports. Right, Uncle Clarence? He's also accused of overstating one source of income while failing to disclose his investment firm's salary. That sounds like Donald Trump. During his second congressional bid, Santos is accused of including a number of falsehoods. All right, that's enough. Jesus. Now, since the Orange Nazis finding that he was, I'm going to just say, since he was convicted, I realize it was a civil trial, but it's just easier for me. Since his his conviction, the finding that he was liable for sexual abuse and defamation, so on and so forth. Well, the first reaction from the other Christian terrorists in our political system was nothing. There's no reason to suggest that the Orange Nazis' position as a front runner for the Christian Nazi presidential nomination is under any immediate threat. Well, it's not. In fact, if you'll remember, after he had 34 or 38, whatever the hell it was, indictments leveled against him. Is that criminal or civil? I don't know. I guess it's criminal. All those indictments leveled against him in New York, his popularity went up. What does that tell you about his Christian supporters? There could not be a more singularly insane indictment of the people who support him and insist that they're Christians. Well, it's disgusting. And the truth is, for most of the history of this country, and for that matter, most candidates, Santos notwithstanding, what happened with the verdict yesterday would raise potentially insurmountable questions of viability of a candidate. But think about when the Access Hollywood tape came out. There was a momentary dip in his popularity, and then the Christian fascists just swarmed around him like pigs around a sty. I mean, they just, everybody has fallen short of the grace of God. Everybody's entitled to redemption. Let's elect this son of a bitch president. And they did. They did. A lot of people who are trying to run for the White House have left the stage, you might say, with less shit to deal with than Trump is dealing with. Well, and Trump, who also has pleaded not guilty in a separate criminal case involving hush money, that was to the adult film star. He's also facing multiple legal threats. He's waiting to see whether he will be indicted in all sorts of probes into his attempts to overthrow the 2020 election and deny 82 million Americans their decision on who they wanted to be president. And also his theft of classified documents that he was going to sell to America's enemies. But the fact that Trump will not bail out of the primary, and no one will make him, it shows his dominant position at the head of the class of the Christian fascist party in this country, and how he alone has defined behavioral expectations, you might say, for anyone seeking public life. You can be a bum, a rapist, a liar, a con man, a thief, a deceiver. But hey, as long as you have the dumb shit Christians behind you, you're going to win. Maybe. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. You know, the Progressive Voices Network brings you commercial-free commentary from today's leading progressive radio hosts and pundits, like me, Mike Malloy, 24 hours a day. I'm not your typical old guy from the 80s or the 90s talk radio host, and Progressive Voices is not your typical talk radio network. It's a listener-supported nonprofit with no corporate control whatsoever over our broadcast. So hosts like me, Mike Malloy, are free to rant and scream and carry on about whatever we like. We're often controversial, but we're never boring. Weeknights, 9 p.m. in the East, 6 p.m. in the West on the Progressive Voices Network. Always progressive, always on. I'm Mike Malloy. Keep it lit.